Mary, I mean, how close were they really to this?
This was an idea. This was not formal discussions. You know, I don't think that they made it a formal overture to Gary and try to get him over. I think it was kind of one of those, okay, who's qualified? Who's the next person to lead this firm forward? And I think it's a really interesting choice.
But did they talk to him about it?
I think there were some informal conversations, but never anything. You know, it was one of those back channel kind of house of cards situations, not a formal, hello, how are you? Would you like to come over?
And did Gary use this at all to his advantage at Goldman?
I don't know that, but I don't think it would hurt his standing. I mean, you have this guy who's obviously so experienced and qualified, and he has a star player, exactly. And I think when you look at the pay differential between Goldman and Pimco, that becomes a pretty big, compelling argument for someone who might want to do a new job, especially if your CEO shows no signs of stepping out.
Okay, so tell me the pay differential. I mean, what are the numbers here?
So Mohamed Al-Arian, we reported in, I guess it was November, that he made in 2013 a bonus from a profit-sharing pool of about $230 million. And Gary made, I think, about $27 million. So that's a little bit of a delta.
That's a huge one. Okay. I mean, that alone. And Bill Gross, by the way, did he support this?
I think that, you know, he was open to ideas is the impression that I got. You know, there was a lot of back and forth. There was a suggestion and then they would pull back. And oftentimes when they're building these lists and kind of spitballing ideas, if you will, they're throwing names out and then they're like, that's not going to work. So this was one of the names that they threw out, and I think that there was more traction with this name than others, but definitely would have been an interesting call.
Right, a big name, to throw into the ring.
Yeah.
Okay, so, you know, this is all at the time when Pimco was going through turmoil, lots of redemptions, particularly after Mohamed Al-Arian left, and questions about Bill Gross. Some of that money went over to BlackRock, right? And BlackRock ended up benefiting from it, but they're having a hard time, with their active equity funds?
Yes. So this is kind of a funny story because Larry Fink has done a great job turning around the bond portfolio and bond performance. They kind of missed the boat after the crisis when Pimco brought in so much money. They brought in some, but not as much. So they've turned that around, but the active equity, is really lagging. And so they've fired people, they've hired people, they've shuffled this and moved offices there and trying to really address that. But the flows have kind of, you know, they've been pretty persistent for the past 21 quarters.
Okay, so what's their plan? Because as you say, they've hired people, fired people. I mean, what is their plan then?
Largely what you do in this situation is you kind of put a fire under people and you also hire the best talent you can find. It's a bit of a paying up to get the people in there that you need to do the good job, and being strategic about how many people you have on what and where there's an analyst. So I think they've gotten some big names in there. Lawrence Kemp is one that they like to mention. So I think that there are a lot of moves in the right direction. It takes a long time for these things to get traction.